Hi, I'm John, and this is Island Uncharted, where I explore the history and backroads of Vancouver Island and beyond. On this episode, I'm going to be exploring 10 places on Vancouver Island that have been forgotten about or lost to time. Join me as I share my stories of Vancouver Island's hidden past.
So my name is Wishkey. It's like a wish and a key, and I am from Hooyet First Nations, and I'm also the resident tour guide at Keegan, our ancient village, which is a National Historic Site of Canada.
Just outside of Bamfield, on the rugged west coast of Vancouver Island, I am visiting Keehan, also known as Keeshan, the ancient Hooyet village. This isn't just any archaeological site, it's one of the only intact traditional First Nation villages on southern BC's coast, continuously inhabited for over 5,000 years. On this private tour, we are accompanied by Wishkey, the Hooyet's traditional speaker. He brings the place to life with song, story, and deep meaning, not from textbooks, but from within. After walking through the old-growth rainforest, we emerge onto a secluded beach. We pause at the archway, crafted to mirror the Big Dipper, a living testament to their astronomy, architecture, and connection to the land. Here at Keehan, standing structures from the 19th century still stand beside ancient timbers, centuries-old house beams you can almost touch. Wishkey tells us that learning here isn't about the past, it's part of reconciliation, a chance to learn and unlearn from our colonial history. Today I'm exploring one of the Cowichan Valley's most fascinating and forgotten estates, the Stonehill Farm. Tucked away on 130 acres just east of Duncan, this place was once the pride of a powerful Vancouver Island family, but now it sits in quiet ruins, slowly being reclaimed by nature. The Stonehill Farm was originally established in the 1920s by Carlton Stone, a wealthy sawmill owner who made his fortune in the booming coastal timber industry. But it was his son Norman who truly transformed the property in the late 1950s. This wasn't just a farm, it was a full-scale retreat. The family poured money into building a massive modernist mansion, complete with an indoor pool, landscape gardens, and huge pond, fed by a small, man-made waterfall tucked in the trees behind the house. Scattered across the property are tons of old outbuildings, abandoned barns, abandoned stables, mechanical sheds, and remnants of the family's sawmill operation. Rusted gears, broken gates, and twisted metal are all that's left of a once thriving estate that blended industry, agriculture, and wealth into one quiet corner of the island. Walking through the ruins today, you can still feel how ambitious this truly was. The mansion is made of solid concrete, and inside you'll find cedar-beamed ceilings, huge fireplaces, and remnants of a luxurious lifestyle that's long since vanished. Every room has a story, and every wall is slowly crumbling. It's not hard to imagine parties here in the 60s, horses grazing the fields and workers moving timber through the mill. But those days are long gone. And today the silence is almost haunting, all echo against the bone of a dream that did not survive the decades. Today I'm visiting one of the most authentic pieces of logging history on Vancouver Island, the McLean National Historic Site in Port Alberni. This isn't just a museum, it's the only fully restored steam-operated sawmill in Canada. The mill was built in 1926 by Robert Bartlett McLean and operated by the McLean family for over 40 years. It ran straight through to 1965, using steam power to drive the saws and equipment that cut countless loads of Vancouver Island timber. Walking the site today, it feels like time has simply stopped. You can still see the original steam donkey, massive log carriage, and the network of buildings where families lived and worked. It tells the story of hard work, community, and the role forestry played in building Port Alberni and the island as a whole. It's a must visit for anyone who wants to truly understand BC's logging heritage. I'm exploring a forgotten stretch of railway between Cameron Lake and Port Alberni, a path once vital to the region's logging and industrial past. But pieces of its history are everywhere. I find piles of old railway spikes, busted couplers, rusted plates, and broken rail sections scattered along the tracks. Reminders of when this track was alive with the sound of trains. This railway was once part of the Alberni Pacific Rail System, which connected Port Alberni to the Esquimalt and Nanaimo lines. It played a key role in transporting timber, goods, and passengers to the heart of Vancouver Island. Back in the early to mid-1900s, trains here hauled huge loads of logs from inland camps down to the mills and docks in Port Alberni. Without this railway, the local logging industry would have never grown the way it did. Walking this route now, it's hard to believe how important it once was. The rails are twisted, the ties are mostly rotten, and many sections have been pulled up or buried under years of forest growth. But every now and again, you find a perfect reminder, a rail bed still intact, a broken bridge foundation, or a ton of rusty buckets strewn in the forest. It's more than just a set of train tracks. It's a living timeline of a past that shaped this region. And while trains no longer run here, the story of Vancouver Island's railway era is still written in every bolt, every beam, and every overgrown kilometer. Tucked away on the back roads of Vancouver Island lies the overgrown remains of the old Suquash mine. I'm not sure if that's how you say the name. One of the region's lesser known pieces of history. This site dates back to the early 1900s when coal mining was booming across the island. While it was never as big a place as Cumberland or Nanaimo, Suquash played a role in fueling local industry and development. Walking through the forest, you can still spot the collapsed structures, old rail ties, and the outline of what used to be the mine entrance. Nature's been reclaiming it for decades, but if you look closely, the past is still here. Rusted cable, stacked stone walls, and its eerie silence for a place once full of noise and life. It's quiet now, but standing there, you can almost imagine the miners, the coal carts, and the grind of machinery echoing through the trees. It's one of the forgotten spots that reminds you just how much history is buried beneath the moss on Vancouver Island. This adventure starts at first light, and hastily blowing up my inflatable raft, where I'm off to explore Stage 3 of the Alberni Inlet Trail. What makes this section cool is that it follows an old railway grade that was started over a century ago but never finished. In the early 1900s, there were big plans to build a railway along the inlet to support the booming logging industry and connect remote camps to Port Alberni's mills and port. Crews began carving into the hillside, building embankments and blasting through rock. But the project ran out of funding and was eventually abandoned before a single rail was even laid. My favorite part was the old trestles, built but never used. As you hike, you'll spot signs of the past, rock cuts, raised grades, and old construction scars hidden in the moss. It's a beautiful route, but also a glimpse into a piece of local history that never quite came to life. A trail built on the dreams of a railway that never arrived. Just a short hike up from the famous Souk potholes lies one of Vancouver Island's most fascinating, forgotten places, the ruins of the Deer Trail Resort. Tucked away in the trees, it was intended to be a luxury wilderness lodge. Built back in the early 80s, the idea was to create an upscale escape to nature with private suites overlooking the river, hiking access right out of the front door, and a rustic lodge vibes with a touch of class. But the project ran into serious financial trouble before it was ever completed. Construction stopped abruptly and the resort was abandoned before it ever saw a single guest. What's left today is like something out of a post-apocalyptic film. Weathered concrete walls, moss-covered staircases, and the crown jewel of the whole place, a massive stone fireplace still standing tall in what would have been the lodge's grand hall. It's eerie but beautiful. Nature has completely taken over. Trees growing through the floors, vines creeping up the walls, and birds nesting where guests would have stayed. It's a place frozen in time, and the silence just adds to the atmosphere. From the top of the hill, you get an incredible view of the Souk River winding through the trees, and it's easy to see why this spot was chosen for the resort in the first place. Tucked deep in the woods along Vancouver Island's coast is one of the weirdest places I've explored to date, the abandoned Jordan River Power Station. Built over a century ago, this place once supplied power to Victoria and outlying communities, but it's been left to rot. From the moment you step inside, it feels as though the walls are watching you. Rusted pipes, broken gauges, and graffiti-covered control rooms tell the story of a place long forgotten. During my brief visit, I kept hearing weird noises. Perhaps it was the wind, maybe something else. Everything echoes like it's still alive. Old staircases that lead to nowhere and pitch-black hallways seem to stretch on forever. I don't know what it is, but the deeper you go, the heavier it feels. It's haunting, but beautiful in a strange way. If you're into abandoned history or just looking to get a little spooked, this place definitely delivers. Over the years, multiple landslides, aging infrastructure, and shifting priorities made it too costly to maintain. By the early 2000s, the station was officially shut down and left to decay. Down here, the air gets colder, the light disappears, it's damp, echoey, and full of graffiti that makes it somehow feel even more creepy. I found open pits, broken ladders, and dark rooms that feel like something out of a horror movie. You can smell oil in the air. The place is holding on to the past. Tucked deep in the China Creek watershed near Port Alberni, I hiked up the McLaughlin Ridge and found some haunting remains of an old and what I believe to be nameless mine. One of the many forgotten sites scattered across Vancouver Island's rugged interior. There is no official name on the map, but it's part of a story of something much bigger. In the late 1800s and early 1900s, Chinese miners were often hired, or left behind, to work in dangerous remote claims like this one. After larger operations had shut down, these men would return and rework for the leftover ore, often with very little pay and under very harsh conditions. As I explored the crumbling tunnels and collapsed shafts, I could not help but think about what they endured. History tells us some of them never made it out. Cave-ins and accident were all too common, and many who died were just buried in unmarked graves. Official reports often didn't even record their names, just Chinese miner, deceased. This site is now overgrown and silent, but it is a powerful reminder of the forgotten labor and sacrifice that helped build this region. These men deserve to be remembered. Just outside of Tofino, British Columbia, deep in the rainforest, I hiked to one of the wildest World War II crash sites in Canada. On the way to the wreck, there's an old building. This building we're looking at is actually an old World War II era radio building. It was part of the Tofino Air Base and it played a critical role in the coastal defense during the war. It's essentially a small concrete bunker, now crumbling and covered in moss. This is the wreck of a Canso bomber that went down in 1945. The plane lost an engine just after takeoff and was carrying 4 massive depth charges and a full tank of fuel on board. The pilot had no choice but to crash land straight into the forest. Somehow all 12 of the crew survived. They sheltered under parachutes and were rescued the next day. The wreck is still here. You can see the wings, the engines, and even a crater where the bombs were later detonated. It's eerie, overgrown, and honestly kind of beautiful. A hidden piece of history just off the beaten path. For anyone interested in accessing this site, it's about a 4-kilometer hike round trip, super easy. They've added boardwalks. And the trailhead is located just off the Pacific Rim Highway on the Radar Hill turnoff. Just be prepared for lots of tourists. I ran into about 4 or 5 different groups on my short hike on the way to the bomber. Either way, it's still a pretty cool site to visit. Near Cape Scott lies the Running Gardens, and just to the right of the parking lot is a hidden relic, an old pioneer graveyard that predates the garden itself. Most of the headstones have vanished, but faint markers hint at settlers and possibly some of the original homesteaders who traveled this old wagon road toward Cape Scott. Records from the 90s mention that locals kept the cemetery brushed up, preserving at least a handful of graves more than a century old. There's a powerful stillness here, each weathered plot a reminder of the rugged lives and early passings in this remote wild. It's easy to miss, but this small burial ground deep in the forest holds stories. Stories of families who braved isolation, builders of the road, and pioneers who shaped the northern tip of this island. And while it's quiet now, those early lives and hopes linger amongst the moss and trees. Thank you guys for sticking around until the end of the video. If you like this type of content, make sure to check out my channel on YouTube, Island Uncharted. I have tons of videos all over Vancouver Island with stuff just like this. If you enjoyed the video, make sure to give it a like. If you have any questions, feel free to leave them down below in the comments. If you like the channel, consider subscribing. I will see you guys on the next one.